Hi, my name is Gil Reynolds, and thanks for joining me today. I'm going to talk about flow bars, or pattern bars that have a design where the imagery flowed inside the bar. Here I have an ingot of glass, different colors, and what I do is I put this in a kiln, I let the glass flow and create different shapes, and then I cut slices off of that, and then these slices can be used to create decorative designs in our fused glass work. Back in the early 80s, we'd make pattern bars by stacking strips of glass together and firing them in a kiln. If they weren't contained, they would flow like this example on the left. If we made some walls out of old kiln shells and coated them with kiln wash, we could contain the glass, and that way it would hold the pattern together. We could also heat it up, stretch it, and miniaturize it and make millefiori. The ancients knew about these techniques. This process is over 2,000 years old. And the Romans and the Egyptians would make pattern bars and loved using them in architectural situations, in their jewelry, in their home furnishings. So one variation I came up with is what I call the rod flow bar. With the rods, what I'm going to do is interrupt the flow of the glass. I'm going to have it drop down over the rods into a container below. And what will happen is those rods will stir my design and give me some organic shapes. I make my container out of anti-refractory material. Here I'm using ceramic fiber board, could be soft brick, kiln post, anything that'll handle the heat and the weight of the glass when you heat it up. It's important that you kiln wash all of the components except the rods themselves. You want a nice healthy application of shelf primer on there so that the glass doesn't stick to the container. But if you were to kiln wash the rods, that kiln wash would get inside and contaminate your pattern bar. What we're trying to do is create a pattern that's basically the same during the whole length of the rod, as opposed to a pot melt where it varies quite a bit down the length of the rod. So we want to have a uniform drop, and that way we can have a repeating pattern that we can use. I cut my glass about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch smaller than the opening so that the glass will not get hung up on the sides or the ends of the container when it drops. You can use multiple pieces. It doesn't have to be solid. And I use about 8 to 10 layers to start with. 8 layers is going to give you 1 inch. If you did have broken pieces, push those seams back together so it doesn't interrupt the design as it works down the length of the rod. I fire it at 500 degrees per hour to 450 and hold for an hour. 500 degrees per hour to 1235, hold for an hour. 500 to 1485, hold for 55. Quick down to 950, 9-hour hold. 20 degrees per hour down to 750, hold for a minute. And 150 degrees per hour down to 200 and hold for 1 minute. Go ahead and come back the next day. When everything's cool to room temperature, you'll see a lot of debris that's left over from the parts of the glass that stuck to the rods temporarily. That'll all fall off and you can just knock it off the rods. You've got a lot of Sharpies to contend with. So our goal is to clean up the brick or that ingot. So I'm using the saw to cut off some of the edges that got stuck, get rid of any irregularities, sandblast if you need to, or grind any kiln wash off to the outside. So you've got a pristine exterior. Then you're ready to cut your slices. I like to use some type of jig so I get uniform thickness, and you can cut different thicknesses depending on what you're trying to achieve. But a nice easy pull with a diamond blade, cut your slices, and I try and keep them in order. So even though they're close, they might vary a little bit. Here are some student pieces from one of my classes. They haven't been fired yet. They're in the patty gray molds, getting ready to heat it up. Now here they are fired. Nice glossy surface. Then we'll take and we'll do a photo shoot with each student's work. Another variation is based on the rope coil technique. You know how honey likes to spiral around when it dribbles? Well, molten glass will do the same thing. And if we can get it to dribble as a wedge, then we'll have those undulating patterns going back and forth during the length of the rod. So I've created an opening that I can set the glass on top of. Now it's going to soften and drop down through that opening. As it drops, it's going to fold back and forth onto itself, just like the honey did with the rope coil. And this creates some very cool patterns. How far it falls, how wide the opening is, are variables, along with the colors you use and how you stack your glass. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you got some ideas on how to make float bars and a sense of what you can do with them. It's a very unique way to work, and I think it has a lot of potential. I'm seeing more and more people doing cool stuff with the float bar concept and pattern bars and making them personalized, making a statement that really speaks uniquely for your own vision and your own direction in glass. It is also something we cover in our manipulated glass classes we offer here at Fusion headquarters. We do float bars and fire bucket and vitrograph and shaping and manipulating to form glass instead of slumping it, hot combing, all kinds of different techniques. So we're always trying to push the limit, take your skill set a little further. If you get a chance, I'd love for you to come join us at one of our seminars. If you go to fusionheadquarters.com/classes, it'll give you the current listing. And I hope to see you sometime. Until next time, keep a warm kiln.